That's when the cat. What? I can't start creepily. How can you start? All right. So this would be Friday, December 5th, the regular class as we get into the Shadow Club, and now you've seen my adorable caterpillar. Let's see. We'll get into from yesterday. Who's our main character talking to us in the story? Jared. Who's his best friend?
Richard.
No,
but like he was about to say Richard. Like he said Rick, so I finished it, so I thought it was Rick.
Yeah, it's not. It was wrong. So Cheryl would be his best friend, and then we get who's the person that he hates? That's where the Austin Pace comes in. And see, we were going through homework. There's our actual official first page thing, information for you. And we have the homework, which will come due Wednesday of next week.
Who is Savannah?
Kid that had the back before, maybe? I have no idea. Let's go with... As we go through, once again, I'll have you use the highlighter and the writing utensil so you can continue to mark the things that are in there. And so we got to... Oh, yeah. Who is it that takes the Shirley Temple lessons or is like Shirley Temple?
Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca, the little girl, and she dances around. Who hates Rebecca?
Cheryl. Sister.
And that's the cousin. Close. Cheryl. And then you have... Cheryl does have a brother. Her brother's name is?
Randall.
Randall. And he will pop up in the story here coming up. Let's see if we have... Scary lady. There. All right. We get to... All right. So we are on page 18 with you guys on the left-hand side. Because he was just talking about the fact that Austin and... Oh, their junior high is a little bit different than ours because their junior high is what grades? 7th, 8th, and 9th. And what grade are the main characters in? 9th grade. Special children. All right. From that moment on, I was a backseater again. The generic kid, living in the bigger-than-life shadow of Lost in Space. But this time it was worse, because I tasted what it was like to be a winner, and Austin was determined to make sure I would never taste it again. You take these things too seriously, my father would say. So he's faster than you. Big deal. I'll bet there are things you do better than he does. But there weren't. My father just didn't understand. It wasn't just that he was faster than me. It was that I was second, and nobody on this earth could care less about runners-up. On that first morning of 9th grade, I watched Austin from the stands. He knew I was there. He had to know. I was the only one in the bleachers. He ran around and around the dirt track in his bright white running shoes that never seemed to get dirty. It looked like he was going to go until the first bell rang, but then he stopped, stepped inside the track, and went to the highest point of the oval. That means the track, so the highest point of the oval will be like the farthest way over there. So he's going to run across the thing. No, highest point of the oval. I knew what he was going to do. He did it all the time. His school bag sat there at the tip of the oval track. He took his blue digital chronometer, the one the coach gave him after last year's final meet, and set it to 0. Chronometer. That's a chronometer. In other words, a stopwatch. Nice. There's a fancy word for it. Then he took his running shoes and socks off and stared at an invisible spot in front of him, straight across the middle of the field, to the other tip of the oval. He took his starting position, clicked the chronometer, and took off in his bare feet. It hurt to watch his speed. He tore through the grass like a racehorse on turf, and was at the other end of the oval much too soon. He looked at the time his chronometer had logged, then he pretended to notice me for the first time. He waved. I waved back. He stretched out his legs, went to get his shoes, and came by the bleachers. "What's up, Jared? Have a good summer?" "Pretty good. What about you?" "Great." He put his foot up on the first bench, stretched his calf muscles. "You like my running shoes? They're Aero Pads. Best running shoe made. Cost almost $200. I nodded. "Maybe if you had these shoes, you might be able to come close to giving me some competition this year, huh?" "Maybe," I said, which wasn't what I wanted to say. I won't tell you what I wanted to say. "Been working out?" "Yeah, I had been. Every spare moment I had." "Yeah, good, me too. Every day all summer up at Junior National Running Camp. Hey, guess what?" "What?" "I might qualify for the Junior NCAA Championships." "Really?" "Uh-huh. Tough competition, but my time now is averaging a quarter of a second faster than last year's 60-yard qualifying time, so I've been trying to get it even lower. My dad says if I qualify, then next year he'll find me a private coach, train me for the Olympics. He smiled that I'm better than you smile at me. So, what have you been up to? Me? Oh, I just went to European runners training camp, where you run cross-country up and down the Alps all day long with famous Olympic athletes. Really? I sighed. No. Actually, I just hung around and worked at Burger King making hamburgers. Hard work, that Burger King. Builds muscles in your fingers. I'll bet. You know, I was the youngest one they ever had working at that Burger King. Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, who else are they going to get to do all the stupid flunky work but a kid, right? I didn't say anything after that. Well, I got to go change, said Lawson. You coming to the first track meeting this afternoon? Of course. Well, I'll get there on time, he said, smiling that crocodile smile at me. They're picking team captain today. I wouldn't want you to miss that. He turned and ran toward the locker room. Team captain today. Already that smoldering feeling was growing. Austin had done it again. In 5 minutes, he'd put me beneath his $200 running shoes and flattened me like a cigarette butt. You ain't got a chance against him, said a voice a few feet away from me. Standing there, right next to the bleachers, was Tyson McGaw, who, when it came to being weird, was head and shoulders above the rest. Tyson had stringy, greasy hair, a dirty face, and his left nostril was larger than his right because he spent so much time with his finger in it. Nobody much liked Tyson. And he was definitely not the person I care to talk to right now. Not after being humiliated by Lost in Space. Why don't you mind your own business, Tyson? People don't like you spying on them. I wasn't spying, said Tyson, mean and defensively, like he was looking to get into another one of his famous fights. Tyson was an odd bird. Half the time he seemed kind of nerdy, off in his own greasy little world. The other half the time he was being nasty and picking fights like he was a tough. The last thing I wanted on the first morning of school was to fight Tyson. Not that I couldn't beat him up. I could. He was kind of weak and scrawny. It's just that he doesn't really fight like a human. He fights more like an animal. Kicking, clawing, biting. I highlighted that and put my brother's name there because I used to beat on my younger brother growing up, and to survive, he would do anything he could to fight back, and he would kick and fight and claw and all that. We called him the animal. He was adorable. Like a puppy. A really angry puppy. Well, spying or not, whatever you want to call it, don't do it anymore. At least not to me, because I don't like it. I got down from the bleachers and began to walk toward the school building. You really don't stand a chance, mumbled Tyson as I passed him. And how would you know? I yelled into his face. Now I was mad. You're not on the team. You're not on any team. All you do is watch everybody else's business and stick your nose in it. Don't you have any business of your own? What goes on between Austin and me has nothing to do with you. Got that? Tyson shut up. I don't think he expected me to get that mad. Just get out of my sight, Tyson. Don't talk to me unless you have something decent to say. I turned and walked toward class. Tyson mumbled something nasty beneath his breath, but I didn't want to push it any further. I ignored him and continued walking. As I got into the building, my anger shifted away from Tyson and back to Austin. What burned me most was that Tyson was probably right. Conceited, arrogant, lost in space, had all the odds in his favor, and I hated Austin all the more for it. I began to imagine how nice it would be if there was a great conspiracy against all the lost in spaces in the world. What do you call it when there's hints in the story to give you clues?
Foreshadowing.
That was an example of foreshadowing, a little bit they just talked about. A club to get revenge on people. Now, I want y'all to know right up front that this is no namby-pamby team, said Coach Schuler as he fidgeted with his whistle. Once you're in, I don't want you all quitting and joining Little League or soccer club or something like that. This might not be high school, but we might not work out 5 days a week, but anyone who knows me can tell you that I expect hard work. Isn't that right, Jared? Right? I said, surprised that he called me out of everyone else. So if you don't want to be here, leave now. In the back, 2 7th graders who in one day had already gotten a reputation of being obnoxious, stood and went to the door laughing. As they left, one of them turned and said, "Adios, Commandant." Some 7th graders laughed. No one who knew Schuler laughed. Schuler looked at his clipboard. First of all, boys meet Mondays and Wednesdays. Girls, Tuesdays, Thursdays. Anyone who wants to come to both practices, anyone who wants to can practice with both teams. As Schuler spoke, my mind began to wander. I looked around the gym. It smelled new, but didn't look much different than the old gym. You would think that when a gym burns down, a school would build a nice new-looking one. But no, this gym was a carbon copy of the old one. In each corner of the gym, a different team was meeting, and more were meeting outside. It looked like about 40 kids were going out for track, a few more boys than girls. By next week, that number would be cut in half. The coach never cut anybody, but people just lose interest and drop out. Lost in Space sat about 10 feet away from me. He sat in the middle of a crew of 7th graders, already setting himself up to be the team hero for all the new kids to look up to. Schuler flipped a page on his clipboard. As you can see, we have a beautiful new gym. And because of last year's fires, the gym is completely off limits when a teacher isn't present. The doors will remain locked. That goes for the auditorium and just about every other unsupervised place. I know you've heard it from all your other teachers. Now you're hearing it from me. He flipped another page. Next, we have something new this year. Something I think you're going to like. A bunch of the local school districts are getting together to have a sort of mini Olympics. And yes, there will be track events. There were various cheers from around the room, including my own. That's the good news. The bad news is each district enters one team, which means that each school can only have one runner. Various aww. I kept quiet. I'm sure Austin did too. I felt a knot begin to form in my stomach. Now, before we go down and assign you gym lockers, there's one more order of business. The captain, said Martin Bricker, an 8th grader who had a good chance of being captain next year, but was the only one who thought he'd make it this year. That's right. This is for old team members only. Here are pencils, slips of paper. When I say so, I'd like all the old team members to come up, fill out a ballot. All you have to do is put the name of the person you would like to be captain this year. Don't we get a campaign? Asked Lawson. No, we don't get to campaign, mimicked Schuler. Y'all know each other. You don't need any presidential debates. There'll be one captain for the boys, one captain for the girls. Boys, vote for boys. Girls, vote for girls. If you're not sure what you are, ask me and I'll tell you. Someone lifted Sarah Dozier's hand and she elbowed him in the ribs. All right, come on up. Here's the ballot box. Please put the pencils back in the can when you're done. I filled in Martin Bricker's name, figuring it was low class to vote for myself, and I certainly wasn't about to vote for Austin. As Austin approached the ballot box, he turned to me and smiled that crocodile smile that screamed, "You loser," from across the room. I smiled that, "We'll see," smile right back at him. Oh, crocodile smile. If you're not familiar with what a crocodile smile is, it's a type of false smile. If you've ever seen a crocodile, it looks like they're smiling, even though they're not. They just have like that natural, their mouth sort of go up. So anytime that you smile at someone and you don't mean to smile, it's a crocodile smile. I use it a lot in class. Whenever you guys are making poor choices and I taunt you with it, I'll smile at you. Oh, you're going to talk while you're standing? That's what you want to do? And so, like, you're smiling, but I feel cold on the inside. That's the crocodile smile. It's like, your eyes don't match it. You're laughing, but I feel like I'm dying. And so that's what the crocodile smile would be. So that's why he's smiling at him, so everyone can see the smile, but really it's a I hate you. He's smiling at the same time. When will we have the results? Asked Martin. They'll be posted on the main bulletin board tomorrow by lunch. The group moaned. Come on, it's only one day. Now, when I call your name, come up and I'll give you your locker number. That night, Cheryl and I sat in Royal Treehouse, talking and trying to get my mind off the election. I never remembered the treehouse being so small. I bet it was even too small for Randall to sit in comfortably now. Sometimes I liked growing, but at times like that, I didn't. I remember when I could lie down across the floor of the treehouse. It could fit all three of us, me, Cheryl, and Randall, each in our sleeping bags, late at night, telling ghost stories and drinking chocolate shakes, which were still one of my favorite foods in the world. I love those days. Now I couldn't even sit in it without bending my knees. It's been almost a year since I've been in it. Cheryl when they lived down the street, but we never had much of a reason to go up into that treehouse anymore. It was Cheryl who had said, "Let's talk in the treehouse." I'd said, "Fine," figuring it would cheer me up. Now, an hour later, the twilight was more twi than light, and the early September chill had come rolling in off the ocean. "What else?" said Cheryl. "Keep thinking." "I don't know. I can't think of any more." "Don't you have any imagination?" "No." "Yes, you do." "Okay." I thought hard. "I know. I would hang him by his toes, upside down, over a bear trap." Cheryl laughed. "Now you're getting really gross." "Well, you asked for it. Your turn." "Okay. Next time she sings, I would throw roses at her like that guy did for her to put behind her ears, only I would make sure they had lots of thorns on them." I grimaced. "Your turn." "I would set Austin loose in Lion Country Wild Animal Park and see how fast he runs." "Next." "Ooh, vicious. Let's see. I would fill her little lunchbox thermos with hydrochloric acid." "That's not fair. I said that one at the wedding." "Oh, well, then how about a king cobra in her lunchbox?" "No, wait, I've got one for you," I said. "Why don't we get her a nice date with Tyson McGaw?" "Oh, that's a fate worse than death." We both laughed good and hard, just trying to imagine Rebecca and slimy Tyson McGaw together. What a match. "I can't believe we're really this nasty," I said. "But isn't it fun?" I guess it was. It was sort of like watching those horror movies. Sure, they're sick and gross and bloody and all that, but everyone still loves them, right? I mean, it's not like we're really doing anything to them. We're not really mean and terrible. It's just a game. Everybody has someone that really irks them, and there's nothing wrong with pretending, right? Wait a second. I just had a brainstorm. We'll pay some bozo to pretend to teach Austin to walk on hot coals, and when he finally goes for it, he'll burn off his feet. So much for running. "You're awful," laughed Cheryl. Then she stopped laughing and thought for a moment. Without the sound of our voices, the night seemed very quiet. I don't think I heard as much as one cricket. Hey, wouldn't it be weird if any of those things actually happened to Austin and Rebecca? Like, somebody up there was listening? What do you call those clues in a story? "I'll make sure I keep my eye out for bear traps," I said. She laughed. I could barely see her now in the shadows on the other side of the treehouse. Like I said, it was small. I could feel her Reeboks touching my Nikes. I wiggled my feet. She wiggled back, like we were playing footsie or something dumb like that. I looked over the edge railing. It was clear that night. No fog like the last few nights. Cheryl's house was the last one on the street, and from there you could just barely see the ocean between the trees, a quarter-mile away. It was my favorite time of day, when the faint blue glow against the horizon is just enough to make everything look black against it, just after the colors have faded from the sky. Back when we were kids, I always loved talking with Cheryl, and even with Randall in the treehouse at this time of day. Ghost stories, or even just stupid talk. Now that we were older and busier, it seemed as though I never really got to talk to Cheryl alone when it was quiet like this. It was different from the old days, but I still liked it. I wiggled my feet again. She wiggled back. "Maybe we shouldn't have done all that before," she said. "What?" "Talk mean about Rebecca and Austin. It's like I feel guilty now." Now that we stopped, I began to feel it too. "Well, it was your idea." "Well, thanks. Now I feel worse." "Sorry." Then I gave her own speech back. "It's only words. It's only like sticking your tongue out at them. That's all. Like you said, it's only pretend. We're not hurting anybody." Foreshadowing. "Right. It gets out all our frustrations and stuff, so we don't go around being angry at them all day." "Right." Somehow, I still don't think I convinced her. I didn't convince myself either. I couldn't. Not when my mind was still filled with all those nasty, ridiculous things that could be brought down upon Lost in Space. What bothered me most was that, like Cheryl said, it was fun. I didn't like feeling that it was fun. I moved closer to Cheryl. Somehow I felt that moving closer to her would make that creepy feeling go away. "Do you really hate Austin?" Cheryl asked. I couldn't see her talking now. It was too dark. I could just barely make out her shape against the trees behind her. "I don't know. Do you really hate Rebecca?" Cheryl sighed and didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "It's not really hate. She's my cousin. I care about her, but sometimes I think she enjoys making me feel lousy." I know Austin does. Do you really hate Austin, Jared? I don't know. I really didn't know. It's all gotten so confused. She thought for a good long time. Would you be happy if Austin Pace moved far away? Yeah. Would you be happy if he got hurt so bad that he couldn't run fast? I don't think so. I think I'd feel sorry for him. How about if he died? Cheryl, come on. Sorry, dumb question. She was silent for a long, long time. She was thinking about something, I could tell. Then she finally spoke, very quietly and slowly. I know what the real question is. The real question to find out whether or not you hate him. What? The question is, if there were a way for you to make it happen, would you wish that Austin Pace had never been born? The cold of the night hit me just then, but I don't think it was just the cold. It was something more, something inside, not out. And it was because I knew the answer to that question, and I didn't like that answer at all. Would you? Yeah. And then she whispered back, I know how that feels. The breeze played with the dying leaves above us. The chill got stronger. Before, I just felt nasty. Now I felt weird and uncomfortable with myself and with that question. Do I wish Lost in Space had never been born? Yeah, I wish that. As much as I hated myself for wishing that, deep down, really deep down, I did feel that way. I couldn't change it. It was scary. Cheryl, I'm spooked out. Me too, she said. It's getting cold. Maybe we should go in. And even though we're close to the end of the chapter, I'm going to stop there. Turn to page 70. No, actually, page 68. It says spiders and snakes. That'll be our next checkpoint. So if you guys want to read over the weekend, actually you're going to need to read over the weekend. So if you want to write on page 68 where it says spiders and snakes, that's going to be where you're going to need to get to. I tried to get as close, but I didn't get as close as I wanted to.
So you need to read that page?
Yep. Other than that,